Have you ever decided to go and get a mouse right for you, for everyday life, but got lost among all the specifications? I mean, how many buttons do you need? This on the sides, on the top, nothing. Maybe this one, which is a classic. Maybe this one here, which is for gamers. Which one do you need? What about the sensitivity? Is the sensor good enough? Maybe this one, or maybe this one, or maybe this one here. How can I know? What about the topic of ergonomics? Is this mouse too small for my hand? Is this already too big? Is this the right size, but my hand is inclined to the right? How can I click like this? Maybe should I get something flatter so I can rest my hand on it? Should I grab the mouse like this? What is it? Well, stay tuned in this video because I will show you exactly what you need to know to find the right mouse for you without driving yourself crazy among all the specifications. In order to get started, first of all, we have to recognize that there is a huge hype for mice. Actually, for everything. For watches, for phones, for keyboards, for everything that you buy nowadays, there is a huge hype providing you the best, the highest. You cannot get a better type of product. And this, of course, is affecting these ones, which we use every day in our lives. If you're a professional working, if you're a gamer, it doesn't matter what you do, nowadays we interact with our computers. And of course, companies want to make profit out of this, which is totally fine, but you have to know exactly what you're getting into. First of all, you have the sensors. There is a huge hype regarding the sensitivity, with numbers going so high that you're never going to use. These ones are labeled as gaming mice. As you can see, this one here in particular, it says made to win. Exactly. And this one is a really known one, the Razer Death Adder Elite. And you have different type of sensors that every time gets updated. The other thing that is hyped is not only the mouse itself, but also the mousepad. This is no mousepad at all, but this is how big it can get, around 60-80 centimeters, because it seems that there are some crowd of gamers, basically, who want to use the mouse like this. And because they want to use for their games just like that. And I never saw anybody using like this. I game myself as well. I play video games in the computer, but I never had to do something like this crazy. Even less, I don't need so high sensitivity where I just have to move the mouse just a bit to accommodate myself in the screen. Even for professional uses, if you are too sensitive with your mouse, then you are going to have a heavy problem by trying to control the movement of your hand, because this is going to land in a bigger movement in the screen. So the bigger the sensitivity, of course, the little movement you need in your mouse in order to have a movement in the screen. Another hype that is happening, of course, we said now that the first hype was sensitivity, then the huge mousepad that you absolutely need in order to work with the sensor that they provide, and even better if you buy it about the same brand. The other thing is the too many buttons. Here we have two to the side. We have the scrolling wheel as always. This is to increase the sensitivity. This is to decrease it. And this is to restore it to default. This is, of course, these are mice that I pre-used. So, of course, I went through the work of finding mice that would fit my needs. And you can see in the market that there are mice which have a lot more buttons. This one also has this one on the side, also again to increase and decrease the sensitivity, and the wheel, which in this case can go to left or right in order to scroll, and nothing else. So as I said, these are mice that I pre-selected because I bought them myself to use and I want to tell my opinion about them. But if you go to the gaming section of mice, you can find mice which have, I don't know, all this side full of buttons on top, on the side of the click, on the right side. It's crazy. So the first specification that I want to talk about is sensitivity. Here you can see that I drew two squares in order to represent the sensitivity, And basically your sensor in the mouse will look on the surface in what you're holding the mouse, and they will analyze the surface divided in a certain amount of points. This is given by the DPI, so the dots per inch. The higher the number, the more sensitive your mouse is. Is it always good? Well, if you have a lower sensitivity and you are dragging your mouse, let's say I will draw a mouse here, and then you are dragging it in this direction, let's say this, and then you do this with this resolution. If you have a sensitivity that is so big, so let's say like that, then this movement will not be recognized. So in your screen, after you have done this movement, you will always see that your mouse moved only like that. But if you have a mouse with a higher sensitivity, in this case, let's say I divide this square into 4. It's really hard to draw under the camera, by the way. But if I increase the sensitivity, then I can recognize a small movement. So in this case, as I moved in this direction, like that, and the sensitivity is small enough, then it will be represented here in the screen, the movement, which in this case is the correct one. But too much sensitivity is counterproductive, because if you, in this movement that you did like this, you have so little sensitivity or so high sensitivity that every movement that you do with the mouse like that, doesn't matter how small it is, then it will be represented on the screen, and of course your mouse will move. So it depends also on how big the resolution of your screen is. If you have a high resolution screen, then you will need a high resolution for your mouse. But usually you would need a resolution from 700 up to 2000 dpi. More than this can be really tricky. There are mice, specifically the gaming mice, such like this one, that comes with 16,000 dpi. In maximum you can use 2000, perhaps 4000. So you are paying for that and you're not using it. And of course, as long as you stick with known brands like Logitech or Razer or some other ones, then you can trust that the given resolution is the one that is in the mouse. So remember, you need high sensitivity and depends on the resolution of your screen. As a comparison number, you can have 700 up to 2000 dpi, and then you will be totally fine. Of course, these mice that have 16,000 dpi you can configure by software, but you are always going to land in this region. The second most important thing, in my opinion, is the mouse size and also your grip. So what I mean by this, so you have different size of mice. You have big ones like this, you have small ones because you can transport them easily to use with your notebook, and then you have something in between, of course. But also depends on how you grip. There are people that like to do the palm grip, where basically they land all the palm and all the hand on the mouse, just like that. There are other ones who like to use the claw, which basically you rest only the bottom of your hand on the mouse, and then you land your fingers and you keep in that position like a claw, and then you move your mouse like that. Then there is the third type, which is only the finger grip, which you don't use your palm at all. You just basically let it floating, and with the fingers only you move your mouse. This is really important because this will dictate which size and shape the mouse that you want to use will have. For example, there are also limitations, of course. If you like palm grip, then you shouldn't buy a small mouse like this, because there is no way that you can actuate or use this mouse like this. It feels like, I don't know, you're holding an egg in your hand. So this is not going to work. So you should go for a bigger mouse, something like that, where you can rest your palm. And also, if you like the palm grip, you can also you have to pay attention to the profile of the mouse. You can see here this one is more is relative high here, but this slope is a bit high as well. Then you have, for example, this mouse, where the slope is also big, but it begins to fall rather early, and this is not so high of a slope like the previous mouse. So in this case, you can basically rest better your palm rather than this, because this is pulling your hand up, while this one is allowing it to rest. Maybe you can see the difference right there. So if you like the claw kind of grip, you go for the opposite. If you have a mouse that is relatively flat here, then you have no surface, like you are forced to palm grip this mouse. Let me show you from that point of view. You are forced to palm grip this mouse in order to use it. So all of these areas are already touching the mouse for me. So if you like claw grip, you have to go to a mouse that has more of a inclination, which is really steep here at the back. So let me show you maybe a comparison of the two mouse together. Maybe you can see how this one begins relatively in the middle to fall, while this one begins here rather late to fall. So with this type of mouse, which are having this slope in this shape, then you can rest your hand like this without having to touch the whole palm. So you can basically grab it like that without resting your palm on the back of the mouse. The same with this one, for example. You can see that this is also relatively tall and also with a big slope here. So this is also comfy for a claw type of grip. It's also okay for a palm grip, but as a rule, if you like palm grip, I would go for a mouse that is flat, so you can rest your hand. But if you like the claw, I would go for a mouse that has an exaggerated shape like this. And if you like the fingertip grip, then you should go for a small mouse. In that case, you avoid to touch it with your palm, and then you just grab it with your fingers. Basically, I use this to control small mice like this for notebooks, for example, which is relatively easy. Then I prefer, my favorite is the claw one, which I don't have to touch with my palm because it gets sweaty and it gets uncomfortable for me. But this is my preference. So then again, fingertips, small mouse. A small mouse would be good. The shape doesn't matter much because you're anyways not touching it, should be light enough, but that's another topic. And if you like palm grips, then go for something which is more flat, so you can rest your palm. Other thing that is really important is the weight, and here every gram is important. Maybe you have seen mice, especially for gaming, which come with a weight actually that you can undo the mouse and put extra weight inside. This is okay if you plan to use the mouse for maybe 1 or 2 hours, but if you are working in an office or you are working at the computer, you have to use the mouse the whole day, you want to have the mouse with the least weight. So please pay attention to that characteristic. So let's discuss the topic of buttons. Nowadays, all the mice have too many buttons. But in my opinion, the ones that you need for sure are the ones here on the side. You have one to go back and one to go forward, one to undo and one to redo. And it doesn't matter which software you're using, most of the programs have the capability to use these buttons right here. And it's really comfortable because when you're using, you press this one like that and this one like this, and then you can go much faster. Like in this case, for example, it doesn't have them, that I have to go in the software to select the option or to press the button on the program to go either backwards or forward. If you are using folders, navigation, or even in the program itself, when you're doing some calculations or you're using whatever program, then you can implement this really fast. The other buttons that you can find usually in the mice, which you can control the sensitivity, are these ones, which will allow you to increase the sensitivity or to decrease it. Here you have it implemented at the bottom part as something different. And of course, this can be useful, actually not, because once you set the sensitivity of your mouse for the monitor that you have, you don't need to switch the sensitivity on the fly. It is not something you say, oh, I have to edit this program or I have to edit this job in this program, and then I have to change the program, and then I have to change sensitivity or within the software. It's really, in my opinion, not useful. But I mean, it is not an option. You can say, I don't need that. And likely this is one of the buttons that bother the least. So the mice that have this option actually, okay, I mean, it's inside, but it doesn't bother so much. One important topic regarding buttons that I wanted to address is also the click. Not only the click in action, how it feels, tactile, mushy, in between, but also the weight that is required to click. In this case, I'm just resting my hand and I just clicked. I'm not a huge guy or a huge arms guy that, you know, just by resting I can click back. But look, I'm just resting my hand and then I clicked. And this is really annoying because you cannot hold your hand all the time like this, just not to click. I'm of course exaggerated. I mean, you cannot hold it like this levitating, but you just want to rest your hand. And I just clicked. And this one also happens. And in this, even lighter. This is the worst. This is acting just like that. And I think it has to do also with the shape of the mouse. This one is really, I would say, relatively flat in comparison to this one. The inclination of this one is really heavy, as you can see from the front maybe, that it forces me to land on this side. So when I put my hand like this, then I'm resting and my hand is kind of rolling, and that's why I click. This one's is not so bad, and also this one, you have this inclination to the side, but it is not so heavy. So this one I think is the best in that regard. So pay attention to the clicking force that you need for this. Another topic for me was the scrolling wheel. This may be too much for you, but to me it is really important. I cannot tell you how many mice I tried and I couldn't select them because of the scrolling wheel. I think the scrolling wheel is one of the most important buttons on the mouse, because this is what we use every day. We have to scroll through things, scroll through web pages, scroll through documents. We have to scroll and select and click. Maybe more useful than this one's on the side. So this one have to feel relatively good, and also when you click, I like it when it is not spongy and not so defined. Of these mice that I have here, the Logitech is the best scrolling wheel. It is really tactile and it is not so heavy. There are also mice that you can spin this and the scroll wheel will spin without stopping. And who needs that? How can you scroll like that? If you are reading, doing something important about a PDF with 1000 pages, and then you have to do this, then what is the purpose? You're going to not read anything because the file will go so fast that you cannot understand what you're reading. So I don't know, this capability of spinning the wheel and let it spin and reach the bottom of the file makes no sense. Better go and select the page and put the last page and then press enter, and then you're there and you don't have to spin like an idiot. And also you have wheels that you can use to the side to scroll through sheets in Excel and I don't know what. I never use that function. It is imprecise. When you click it like this, you don't know what you're doing. So better go to the bar and then go to the left or to the right if you want to scroll horizontally. So really important that you have to be aware of the scrolling wheel. It is not something minor, and when you press it, you should check something that it is clicky and it is not spongy. And it is also not so heavy. There are really well regarded mice from Logitech, but I didn't like them because of the wheel was too heavy, especially the ones for gamers, which the wheel is too heavy. And also the ones from the comfort mice or the ergonomic ones, that the wheel was sounded like something was broken inside. So this is a huge topic. So please pay attention to this, and if you're looking for a mouse, check this, that it doesn't bother you. And to finalize, I would like to discuss about the quality of the mouse. And by this, I mean the surface. You can see this is plastic. This is, I don't know, has like 3 years of use. This one has around maybe less than a year. This one has more than a year, actually 2 years of use. And this one has not much use. I bought it, but I couldn't use it because it demands me to use the palm grip, and I hate that. So the quality, I mean, regarding the surface, I don't know what you would prefer, because you have these ones, which is basically plastic, but they're slippery, really slippery, which if you are sweating a bit, then the mouse will slide out of your hand. Then you have this one, which I believe is the best, which is a plastic, but with some type of grip, without any soft surface, because this is what you find, for example, in this one, I believe, or in this one. But they look so greasy. When you are using it, then you have stains of oils of your hand all over, which are really annoying. This I found to be the best compromise. So something hard, not so shiny and slippery like this one, and avoid these ones that are covered with a really thin layer of plastic or silicone, which makes it nice to the feeling, but also it is having the disadvantage that you will see all the stains of your hands on this. It's really disgusting. So the other thing that I wanted to discuss is the cable. This one is a braided cable, as you can see. This one is not. So this is a pure plastic cable or silicone, I don't know what is it. The thing is, I prefer this one that are braided, but you want to go for a mouse that has a thin cable, because there is nothing not more annoying that when you are using your mouse and then this thick cable gets in the way, and it is actually heavy, or because of the shape that is thick, you cannot move the mouse freely and you have always resistance. But when you have a thin wire cable, then you can move your mouse really easily and you don't have to worry about that. The material doesn't depend much, but the thickness, it's really important. So go for a mouse that has a thin cable. And just as an extra thing, there are mice that have light effects and I don't know, stuff like this that may look cool, but this is of course the least important thing in a device like this. So I hope this video was useful to you. What do you think? Do we have so many options nowadays to help us to not get into what we actually need, but we get distracted by lights and by functions that we will never use? What is your opinion on this? I'll be glad to read them in the comments. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to give it a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the following ones.